So we continue with identities. We're going to ethnic identities. So when we talk about ethnic, we're talking about where we come from, our origin, our race. So let's say anyway, when talking about ethnic identity, it is helpful to keep two things in mind. Ethnicity is not the same thing as race, as Osario argues. This simple biological notion of race is wrong. There is no solid scientific evidence of genetical different racial groups. There is anyway, but let's just leave that for another day. We should avoid thinking about ethnicity in terms of minorities. So the Center for Social Welfare Research says that for all of us, identity is in some sense ethnic in that we have diverse origins related to how we are perceived and treated by others. So ethnicity is our origin, where we come from. It's still part of our race, but we don't want to talk about race because when it is being linked to race, it brings about racism and it doesn't look good in the society. So ethnicity therefore refers to a combination of cultural differences in areas such as religion, family structure, beliefs, values, and norms. So we're going to start with one at a time anyway. But according to Winston, it suggests that ethnic identities develop when people see themselves as being distinctive in some way from others because of a shared cultural background and history. Song in 2003 claimed, the first about Winston, he said it sees ethnicity as you seeing yourself culturally inclined to others. So this is my way of life. It is not your way of life, so we are different. So that is ethnicity. According to Winston anyway. Then, for Song, he claims that this is often expressed in terms of distinctive markers, such as a common ancestry and memories of a shared past. A sense of ethnic identity is based on symbolic elements, such as family and kinship, religion, language, territory, nationality, and physical appearance. Ethnic identity does not necessarily relate to any actual evidence of cultural distinctiveness as a group. The key factor is whether people are conscious of belonging to the group or not. So, according to Song, he believes about our consciousness, our conscious awareness about where we belong. So, if I see myself as being part of this society, then I'm part of this society. But if I see myself as not being part of this society, I am not. That is according to Song. So ethnicity, as a source of personal and social identity, is built on a range of ideas that include referring to country of birth, that's nationalization, by birth anyway, and the sense of a common geographic location. So here, where I'm being born, so I can see myself as being identified as an individual from that country, or because I share a geographic location with a certain group of people, and that location, the name of that location, I am linked to that location. Traditions and customs that contribute to unique cultural practices that distinguish one ethnic group from another. So we could still see ethnic identity as the difference between our tradition, our way of our beliefs and their beliefs. That is also part of ethnic. Then shared histories and experiences as defining sense of identity as with victims of slavery in the case of Black, Caribbean, African identities, or the Nazi Holocaust in the case of the identities, okay? So we can still talk about our ethnic based on past history, where we hail from. Then the last one is our religious beliefs, celebrations and traditions that connect people on the basis of shared cultural practices such as common forms of worship. So how we worship, we are Muslims. So because we are Muslims, we can see ourselves as a Muslim society. So that means we can relate as being Muslims. So because we are Muslims, we have the same idea. We share the same belief because we worship in the same way. So that could be linked to our ethnicity. Is it clear? Is it clear, please? So it could be through the country of birth, or because you share certain geographic location. It could be based on traditions or customs, like what you do, your beliefs. It could be part of our history, where we hail from, and it could be because we worship in the same way. So these are ways in which we can group our ethnicity. Then, unlike racial identities, ethnic identities can be negotiated. Their nature and meaning can change because of external and internal factors. For external factors, which might include contact with other cultures, internal factors might be a clash of ideas and experience between different age, class, or gender groups within a particular ethnic group. So, for ethnic, why we won't talk about racial identity is because when we talk about racial identity, it is not flexible. It is linked to specific group. So it means if you are not part of this group, you can't be part of this group. You can never be part, you cannot become that group. So that is racial. But when it comes to ethnic identities, they said it can be negotiated because we have some internal factors and external factors. The internal factors such as sharing the same idea, knowledge, or sharing the same, being part of, linked to another group. Oh, I'm a Nigerian, then married to an Egyptian. So we start sharing the same link. So that means we're not looking at it through the race. We're looking at it through ethnicity. That's the point they're making there. So the internal factors might be a clash of ideas, the experience we have. Then the external, which is just what I talked about. Maybe we share festivals together, we do festivals together, we eat, we have similar dishes and the rest. So these ones are ethnicity. We can't call it racial identity because if we call it racial identity, we cannot eat the same food, we cannot share the same idea, we cannot share the same knowledge. Do you understand? But if it is ethnic, we can share ideas, we can share knowledge, we can share food, we can share culture. Yeah. I can participate in your culture, you can participate in my culture. Yeah. So that is ethnicity. So according to Winner in 2008, he argues that an important aspect of ethnic identity is how they are defined in relation to other ethnic groups by constructing a sense of difference, which establishes boundaries for a particular identity. Ethnic boundaries may be positive, conferring a sense of belonging to a definable cultural group, or may protect. As a way of fighting racism and discrimination, for example, boundaries may also be imposed through cultural stereotypes about ethnic groups and identity. That means what you call them, what you tag them. So this may, in fact, reinforce a stereotype group sense of identity. So, according to Wimmer, he sees ethnic identity as a way to protect and differentiate. So here, when you set a boundary, you're not setting that boundary because you are difficult. You are setting that boundary because you need to protect your culture too. Do you understand? So when you set boundary, you are protecting your culture. You are protecting your society. It doesn't simply mean you are discriminating. So that is what Wimmer is saying, that ethnic identities can be divided into two different differences too. But we shouldn't see that difference as a sort of wanting people far away from us, but making them to understand the values of who we are, what we are too. So that's why he said you can divide the culture, it can divide your cultural group or at the same time protect you. So it defines us, we are Libyans, and we have boundaries because we need to protect our culture. So that is the point. Is it clear? So another way in which ethnic identities can be imposed relates to how minority identities can be defined by majority ethnicities in terms of their otherness, how they are different from us. While this relationship strengthens both majority and minority ethnic identities, it can also result in minority ethnicities being portrayed as a threat in two ways. So another way to define ethnicity is how we define the minority group from how we relate to the minority group and how we relate to the majority group. So there's always going to be a minority group in the society. So how do we relate with them? How do we deal with them? So that could talk about more of ethnicity too. Then it becomes a threat based on the following reason. One, cultural, where minority beliefs and practices are set up as challenges to a particular way of life. So it could become a threat because the minority groups are always they are isolated from the society. And as a result of that, their culture might be seen as unusual to the majority group. So they will not be able to practice their culture. And even if they want to do, it becomes difficult for them to portray it or to let people see what their culture is. So that's one problem about minority group. Then the physical, where in countries such as Britain and the US, following the September 11 World Trade Center attack, the media framed and references the threats in terms of Muslim and terrorism. So here, it's not about just minority. Now we're seeing the ethnicity which comes from how we worship as Muslims. So after the attack in 2011, the Americans, they see Muslims as terrorists. So that's the point there. So based on the fact that we have identity, that we could be seen as Muslims. So I portray a Muslim name, you portray a Muslim name. So whenever they see the Muslim name, they see it as being a terrorist. Yeah. Do you get the point here? Because we are linked. We could be linked as through ethnic, based on the religion we do. So because we are Muslims, they don't see if I'm a Muslim, I'm from Nigeria or wherever, but because I'm a Muslim, based on my ethnic, they believe we have the same mentality, mindset, and ideology. So they would not see me as a Nigerian, they would see me as a Muslim and a terrorist, based on the fact that the attack was carried out by Muslims. So that's about the physical. I think it's clear, right? Then we have age identities after now.